Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, new video and part 2 of my Peak Time Techno 4 Ableton template explanation. Basically, this template I've been creating live during my live stream session on my Audio React channel. It's every 2 Sunday. You can come around, participate, ask questions. And last week we talked about the sound design, the purpose of each track, the MIDI pattern. And this week we're gonna focus more on the arrangement, automation, variation, a bit of mixing and mastering as well. But first, let's have a listen to the track. Right, so before to jump into the arrangement, so there is a cool story about how it happened, because the first live stream I've done the drums, I've done the bass line, and things was going pretty well, and then I had like a block in terms of inspiration, in terms of finding a good melody or a good riff or a good hook. And I kind of even have finished the live stream before because I was totally uninspired. And then the week after, thankfully, inspiration came back and I managed to find this lead, this kind of melody, which I decided to use as the main kind of riff and mood of the track. And I had another lead playing on top that I on the end decided to don't keep, but who was playing a similar role than this lead, like very percussive synth playing here and there, except that this one is kind of a FM percussive sound, and the original one was more melodic and a bit too cheesy to my taste. But yeah, once I had that, I had the idea to have this little stab playing here and there, this short element, which are all of the stab here you can see, that are playing the whole track here and there. It adds variation. You can almost consider them like a lead because they are really not just like to fill up the blank, but they are really adding this excitement and this constant interest to your track. So then once I had all of these elements, I had to build the track around that. So for the global main arrangement idea, you know, I like to have more or less an idea how I will separate the verse, the chorus, the break before to kind of start building. And here I didn't want it to have like a kind of a verse in the middle. I wanted to have like, because of this link was strong enough, the melody to play the whole track. Obviously, sometimes you can put the filter down to put it a bit more in the background, but the idea to have something very progressive and linear. So the lead one is playing almost the whole track, but because of this kind of very percussive synth playing here and there, it doesn't really make it too boring. And so the idea was to have a pretty long intro where almost in the intro you have kind of a pre-chorus where you have already the melody playing and a very energetic moment. I say pre-chorus because you see you have the ride, and this is kind of still the intro, but you have you already have a lot going on, and the first break didn't even happen. And then I will go into the break, and then it will be like the kind of the real chorus with a nice drop, obviously. And I didn't want it to too long breakdown first, because the idea was to have just one long breakdown later on in the track, and I didn't want it any verse neither. So the chorus is playing the long time, and then you have this long breakdown, and then you have the drop. But then here the drop, you can see I didn't drop with the lead one. I wanted something different. And the great thing about this track, from the beginning I had this rolling bass line, and I knew I could use it like kind of to become almost like a sidetrance track. Obviously it's not a sidetrance track, but you get the idea. And you can hear here it's actually louder, the bass, the sidetrance bass. I automated the volume, so this way now when I drop here, it's almost like a sidetrance track. And so that's actually how I kind of get rid a little bit of the lead, but it's not really a verse, obviously. And then I have this part where after the lead come back, and then I play with the ride, and then it's the outro. So it's different than what I would usually do, like a chorus, verse, chorus, with having break in between parts. Here's more like just chorus 1, chorus 2, long break, chorus 3. Yeah, let's start from the beginning. So I will show you how I introduce each element and why and how things are going. So the intro, we start just with the kick. We have the close hi-hat playing, we have percussion. This is to avoid to have an intro which is too empty. You have the rolling bass as well, but the psytrance type of bass line is kind of low cut, so you won't hear it like the proper one. And you have this steady pad as well, which is playing this sustain note. And so altogether you get close hi-hat, the steady pad, this is low pass, and here you can see I already start to play some SFX and some stab here just to add a bit of variation. Like I said, because nothing is happening in the first 16 bar, you see, you have no drums or nothing really added. Then I introduce the open hat. Psytrance bassline start to open. Some stab and SFX, here the clap is playing. So here you can see that it starts to get a bit more busier in terms of stab and sound popping here and there. It's obviously like 45 seconds in the track. Then I will introduce the open hat, the driving one. I have this driving open hat coming. And I also have the main lead, which is slowly introduced. So you start with the filter down, or with an EQ with a low pass filter down, and then you open it up and up to build the tension and to kind of here I introduce the ride as well to make it a bit more energetic. That's why I call it kind of a pre-chorus, and it's like already like you are in the track, because you can see you have your ride, which is very energetic. You have your synth, which is playing with the filter very open. Like all the elements are they momentum already, so it's kind of a pre-chorus. And I noticed a lot of people are doing that. Like even before the break, you already have a very high energy before the first break, and then we go into the first break. I get rid of the ride, then the back and kick. So here obviously you have this part which is very energetic and a lot of element. You want to transition to maybe something a bit quieter. Obviously you wanna drop a little bit the energy, but you don't wanna drop it too much, obviously. And usually what's work well with drop is like to get rid of all of the hats, and you just have the kick, the bass, and you mainly playing, and it's work very well because you have high energy there, and you drop to this, which is a bit more lower in energy, but it's way much more impactful, and this difference in dynamic create this nice impact, and yeah, it just works perfectly. Then you will have some SFX and some effect as well on the sub mix down, mix down kind of master effect. First, you can notice every time there is a break, you have a low cut on your master. So it's this EQ8. You can see it's the device on, off. It's this EQ. Every time I activate, deactivate, you have a low cut, which is great for transition. So you have this. It's allowed as well to, when you start the break, sometimes you can get rid of the kick and the bass in the same time altogether. And sometimes what can happen is like it's very brutal. And so I like to use first the low cut to have, like, for example, 4 bar with the kick with the low cut, and then I get rid of the kick and the transition are smooth here. So that's what's happening here. You have as well a clap which is doing like a snare roll, which is gonna build the tension. You can see here you have some automation going on. It's basically the clap is going into the return, which the return is a washout effect. So it's gonna again add this noise, which is gonna build the tension. And obviously you have some SFX, so you have this reverse SFX here and as well here and there. All of these are reverse SFX, so it's pretty great to kind of anticipate something. And especially here you have the lead one playing, and then you have this surprisingly lead two, which is different than the lead one before, which is basically the same lead but playing an octave upper. So the reverse was gonna help that, and then it's playing the pattern once, and then again you have some reverse FX which help to drop the sound. You have as well on the master obviously the washout effect. This is a washout effect. It's gonna bring all of your sound into a lot of delay and reverb. That's the effect it does. And I'm sending as well all of my master here, you can see on the submix down to the return, which is gonna create this washout. You can hear it's adding this kind of white noise on top, which help build the tension as well. I also have this kind of resonance sweeping effect here. This is a bit subtle, it's a bit stronger on the next break, but it's creating this effect. So I didn't want it a too long break here. I want to keep the energy like I said. So that's why things are happening pretty fast and keep going. The drop is still effective. And yeah, now our main lead is introduced and we are playing our main lead. So first it's playing just by itself. You can see all the stab and Lisa Send popping here and there are not playing yet. You don't have drum. And obviously you will have automation of the filter along the track to obviously add variation, put it a bit more in the front, in the background, like as well, like to kind of getting the attention and then letting the attention more for the stab and for the second lead, which is gonna appear right now. Just kind of a stab one, but then introduce the open hat. Then it goes like this. I add the ride obviously, and then we're gonna enter into the very long break. So here's some technique to enter in the break. I use first a low cut, which is on the mix down, which is here, and then I will play it for 8 bar this time and then get rid of the kick and bass and hat. Here I have the drone start to play. So here the idea was to start, obviously it's the breakdown, you cannot be high in energy, so you need to calm things down and start from low to again go to something high to obviously build the tension and have a higher dynamic as usual. So you need to go from very high to low, and this little part here, it's what it does. You have the low cut and you have this drone which is kind of letting you know that something new is coming, and obviously I have some SFX as well after we end the horn to help the transition, to make it understand that something new is coming. And so then again we're gonna start from something down, everything, the filter is down, the drone, the main lead, and we're gonna go up and up and up and up. yeah, take your time to make things evolve, opening slowly. Okay, so now that this period is finished, now we need to make the listener understand like, okay, things are going to happen very soon, so let's build the tension even more. So that's why I reintroduced the kick slowly. Obviously there is the low cut, so you don't hear the boominess, just hear the transient. The hat is gonna be introduced as well with some SFX. You have the lead 2, which is starting to play again, which is kind of letting you know like, okay, this is now it's like they are like the signal, like things are coming. Obviously on the mix down, you also have the riser knob coming, going up and up. We send to the return for the washout effect. So here we build the tension. It's sending all of the track on the return. It's at this noise which is getting louder and louder. You have as well the claps that getting louder and louder. So all of these things are really helping build the tension. Obviously you have the filter of your main lead which is opening more and more, which help as well. And then again here you send this whole mix to the return, which is create even more noise. Then you have the riser knob which is going up and up. So obviously you have the sound which is starting to be more and more filtered and more into reverb, which is kind of elevate your sound and kind of, yeah, build the tension. And yeah, slowly we go into the last part of the break. So here, before I play it, what is happening? So you build everything up and then you decide to brutally stop everything. So, and then we enter in the last part of the break where we're gonna get rid of the hats, the clap, pretty much anything. You're gonna Alright, so here what's happening is then you build everything and you just let the main lead play. So this is usually pretty effective before to drop your sound. You know, you build all of your drum roll, all the tension is going up, then you stop everything, you play the main lead, you'll get a little silence before to drop again the sound, and that's always work. So that's exactly what I've done here, except down here you have the lead 1 playing first, and then you have the lead 2 playing alone, which is like there is no anymore any sound around, and then you have this reverse FX straight away once this sound is finished to play, to really help with the transition and the drop to make it really effective. So it sounds like this. Up. Cut first time. And now you get rid of everything, reverse and drop. So here there is a filter as well, a sweeping filter effect. The same than in the first one, but you can hear it's a bit more. Yeah, I tried it. I found it helping with the transition, and this is just a great way to kind of sweep everything and cut everything, and then you just have this. And then finally the last drop and the last chorus. So here the idea was to don't drop with the lead 1 or the lead 2. You know, I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to get inspired from Enrico Sangiolino track, which is called Future Dust, where he dropped with a kind of a psytrance bass line, and I wanted to have something similar. Obviously it's not as psytrance as this one, the bass line, but basically what I've done for this track is you can see all the track, the bassline is playing at -10 dB and then it's playing at 0 there. So, which means that during the main track, the accent is not that much on the psytrance effect. You can kind of hear it a little bit, but it's not what is in the front. Rather than here, the idea was to really kind of having this drop with a strong bassline, strong rolling bassline, and that's exactly what I've done by boosting a little bit here, or at least no boosting, but making it louder than the rest of the track. So. So then after you still have this kind of stab scent playing here and there. So it goes like this for 8 bar, and then I've done this trick where I kind of basically resample the track. So this part of the track, I just resample it. So if you don't know how to do it, do Control T, and you can just like as the input select resample, and basically it's gonna resample your master. You put in rec, and then you record, and you can just like reverse it, and you get this which is basically the track but reverse. And what I've done here is like, if you do that just before the next 8 bar, I kind of get rid of the last kick. See, the last kick of the bar is not playing. So it's kind of a little bit of a break, and then you have this reverse, and then it's starting again. And then you have lead 2, which is start to play again. All of the stab again still keep playing. You introduce some hats here. Straight away I introduce the closed open hats and the driving hats all together. So you have straight away this driving effect. And then we're gonna start introduce lead 1 again and again to have everything going on just before the final break. So here in the last part of the chorus, we are more like in the same style of chorus which was with chorus 2. Like the first part, it was more like a just focus on the bass line, on the sidechains bass line, rolling sidechains bass line. Then we add the lead 2, and then now we focus more on the main lead. So it's kind of divided in 3 parts, the last chorus, which is great because it adds variation, and yeah, it's not the same. And then we're gonna go into the final break. So here again, when it's the final break, what I will usually do, I always get rid of the right. All of the sends are going down. You filter all of your main lead. Low cut obviously again. Then it's a classic outro where you get rid of the thing slowly. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the arrangement. Now we can talk about variation, modulation, automation. On the kick, you have mainly gain is just for the break, like to kind of get rid of the kick or to introduce the kick. Don't be brutal, nothing crazy. For the hats, the only one you have is the return. So you send your hats to the return, which is kind of creating this noise. If I mute, and this noise is really great to attention. It's an easy way to attention. You just send everything to this return, and so that's why I send sometimes my whole track to the return. And yeah, I do the same with the clap. Yeah, bass I don't have anything except the gain I just explained to make it louder, to make it sound more like a sidetrance. Then obviously the main lead, I have the EQ, which is here, which is gonna allow me to put the sound a bit more in the front or in the back. And then as well I have 2 macro. One is the decay, so it's gonna make the sound a bit shorter. You can see I mainly play just in the first part. It's just to make it longer. It's very effective again during the break where you gonna wanna make the decay longer, so your sound is getting longer and it just makes things more intense. And I have macro 1 as well, which is kind of acting like a filter, but like a filter in pluckiness as well that I've used here for the break, just for the tension. Then after I didn't use it because I prefer to use a low pass filter to kind of put more in the front or in the background, or like a kind of make it a bit more quieter or no. Then I have this automation on the threshold of the sidechain compression. So like I said, next week this compressor basically is gonna duck the sound of my lead 1, and what is gonna make it duck is the lead 2. So you know the stab here. So basically this compressor is ducking the sound of my lead 1 when the lead 2 is playing, and it's usually pretty subtle in the whole track, but because of this part of the track is very noisy, I needed to duck it even more. So that's why I automate the threshold. So like this way here, it's ducking it even more, because otherwise you can barely hear the lead 2 if you don't have sidechain compression, because there is so many elements there. So lead 1 bis is the same type, it's like some GK automation for the break. Lead 2 I don't have anything, neither for stab 1, neither for stab 2, no stop 3, neither for the acid attack. So for the horn, I have this EQ, which is kind of what I've done for the break, which is kind of this sweeping filter effect. And that's pretty much it. One thing I've done here is in terms of the panning. So I've automated the panning to have the sound going left, right, or right, left. So if you hear here, it was going from the right to the left and then go back to the right. Rather than here, it should be the opposite. Was coming from the left to the right and back to the left. Obviously, because of the sound is stereo, because of the unison and the reverb, it's not like perfectly, but you can still hear the movement just to add a bit of variation. Then pad, there is nothing. There is some pitch bend modulation here on the pad, which is gonna create this but yeah, nothing crazy. Anyway, this is just in the background. Same with the break drone. It's just gonna be like some filter opening, closing to build the tension during the breaks. You see, you start with low filter. And you open it more and more to build this tension. Here's just some gain automation, some volume automation to introduce the sound a bit more smooth here. You might wonder why I use utility gain and when I don't just use the fader of the track, because this is like kind of, I consider it like a mixing console. And so if you do your automation here with the fader and then at one point you want to reduce the volume of the overall track, you are kind of fucked because you have automation there. So you can still use the utility to kind of reduce everything, but yeah, on the end it's the same. So I rather use utility, so like this I can easily reduce the volume of the track, of the whole track if I need. For example, when I'm mixing and I say, okay, oh, this track actually is a bit too loud, I just bring 2 dB like this and it's easier. And like this I don't mess up with my automation. All right, and then like I said, I had automation on the send mix down, which is gonna send the whole track to the return, and on the mix down where you have low cut for the transition and the break, and you have as well this washout effect and the sweeping effect as well during the break. You might wonder why I have send mix down, and master, which are kind of basically not the same, but it seems like they have the same purpose. And I will put the link in the description of the video where I explain exactly why I have all of this mix down, master. All right, and that's pretty much it about the arrangement and everything related to it. Now let's talk a bit about mixing. So if you're familiar with my video, you know what I'm gonna say. You can see there is already on the element I show you, there is nothing much. You have sometimes EQ, but there is nothing never really crazy. I will mainly use 4 devices for 4 reasons. I will use most of the time a saturator for loudness. Recently I've been using drum bass as well a lot, just to add some harmonics, make things a bit more louder. Then I will use EQ, but EQ it's usually very subtle. It's just like to cut the low frequency if I don't need, to boost a certain frequency, to help a certain element cut through the mix, reduce the harshness of the high with a low cut or a band shelf. And then I will use delay, but delay is more sound design because it's mainly to add groove, and reverb obviously to make you sound a bit less dry. But delay and reverb for me in techno, they are 50%, or let's say 80% is like sound design. So you're gonna set your reverb because you wanna give a certain color to your sound, and not because you wanna put it into a space. You wanna obviously put it into a space, but you wanna give color. So I don't really consider it like mixing. What advice I can give you, it's always being careful with the dry wet amount you use, because you tend to use a lot of wet amount, a long decay, because it's often sounding nicer, but obviously it's getting messier in your mix. And yeah, finally, one thing I forget, some sidechain compression as well, obviously I will use, but this is like kind of mandatory just to have leave space to the kick and have this pumping effect. I use pretty much on everything. It's important for the groove as well. But yeah, my best advice for mixing is first making sure you pick up the right element that are fitting well together. Sample selection is very important. Sound selection is very important. Making sure you pick up sound that fit well together, that doesn't overlap together, or you can have 1 or 2 overlapping, but avoid if possible. Or for example, you can do like I done. You can sidechain one with the other. So one is playing, it's sidechain the other, so it leaves space for the other. That can be a technique. But one thing very important, which is often overlooked, which unfortunately I cannot give any tips, is make sure you have your track track at the right level. So I usually start with the drums, making sure all the drums are at the right level. Then I add the bass, and then I will add the element. Usually I kind of follow the timeline of the track. So I will start with the drum, the bass, then I will add the pad, and then an element, another. And then the more I go in the track, the more I make sure each element is at its place, fitting each other. Panning as well can help. Here I've panned a few elements. Some of them are here on the pan here. Some of them are like inside the track, because sometimes you want to put your pan before your delay and reverb. And because I'm using most of the time my delay and reverb inside the track itself, I need to put a utility to pan, because you want the dry signal to be panned on the left. So like this, you still keep the stereo of the delay and the reverb like a normal stereo. Another tip I can give you, it's if sometimes you feel your sound is too messy, if it's like a preset you created, try to maybe make it clearer on the synth sound itself. Don't try to like EQ, distortion, reverb. Like sometimes we think it's the effect is gonna make it better, but most of the time it's the source which is important. If you have a clear source, you will have a clear output. All right, and then finally we're gonna talk about the mastering. So this is what I call the homemade mastering, because I'm not considering myself like a mastering engineer. I think this is something that has to be done by a guy who does just that, or someone who is really skilled at that, who have the proper room for that. I don't have all of that, but at least I can give you a few tips and tricks here and there to kind of make you sound a bit more louder, a bit more compact, and a bit more like club ready, let's say, or like being able to go to try it out and or to compare with other people's track. So the first things I will do, I will pick up the part which is the louder in the track, and I will loop it with Ctrl L. Then I will always add utility. I will put the bass in mono and under 120 Hz. Then you have the width, which is gonna accentuate obviously your stereo. This is very gentle. All right, then I will add a bit of compression. So then after it depends the style, it depends what you want. I will go for something more aggressive or not. Nevertheless, I will always recommend to kind of EQ your input, because what's happening if you don't EQ your input? What is basically triggering your compressor? What is basically triggering your compressor is the higher in energy part of your track. And here, in this case, is the kick drum, is the low end. If you take a spectral analyzer, you will see your low end is the more energetic, the louder. And you don't really want the kick drum to trigger your compression. You want more have a global compression. Let's say like a more global compression. So I will always EQ the input. So this way it's not the kick, it's more like the sharp transient that you're gonna tame, and it's gonna kind of boost everything and get something a bit more compact. Then the attack release. Attack I will usually always keep like 30 milliseconds, because you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want the transient of your kick to be cut by the compressor or to be reduced by the compressor. So 30 milliseconds is usually a great time. And then the release, I will always check with the threshold. It really depends per track what you want, if you want more pumping effect or not. But yeah, sometimes what I will do is I will bring the threshold a bit too excessive, like to really hear properly how the release. Effect, and then I will judge. Then the ratio I usually leave 4, because it's kind of a middle way. 10 is too much, 2 is not enough. I will always act the soft clipping, and then after the makeup gain, this is depend how loud you want it. I made it pretty loud. I could have been a bit more louder, I think, but it's already pretty loud, and which is great for this kind of techno. Then I will always do an EQ to kind of slightly rebalance. So here again, I will cut everything under 30 Hz. Then I will usually cut there is usually like a frequency, it's not always true, but there is between 200 and 400, 500, like there is always like around there a band that it's a bit messy, annoying, that I like to remove. So the frequency vary to each track, but yeah. Same with 3. See here, actually I cut 2 times, but yeah. Then I will boost at 3 kHz. I always feel like around 3 kHz, you gain in clarity. And then the high shift to boost, to make the sound a bit more brighter, and then a low cut at 17, 18, 16 kHz. Get rid of all this frequency we don't like. So then here I try something new. Usually I will use just one saturator, this one with analog clip. Just to add some loudness a little bit, and then I use another one in digital clip, and you're gonna hear it's quite of a brutal saturation. I found it making the sound a little bit more tight and punchy than it was. And then color limiter, so this is great to add harmonics, make things louder as well. This is a free Max for Live device that's come with Ableton on the creative extension. I just love this device. It kind of, I don't know, adds something to your overall sound, like kind of making it wider, warmer, very nice. Kind of making it a bit more full, and I always use a bit of saturation around 0.04 or 0.06. The color, it depends, obviously, the more you go up, the brighter it gets. And you see, I'm not really like limiting, like the point is not really to limit, it's just to use the color of the device to add a bit more warmth to your track. And then one final limiter to kind of squash a little bit the final transient. Yeah, maybe I could have gone 1 dB upper with this one, but it's already pretty loud. Alright, and then that's pretty much it for this track. I hope you liked this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to support me, you can grab the template, the link in the description. Otherwise, see you next time for a new video, guys. See you, bye bye.